Bitcoin is now at a pivotal point in both its price and life cycle, with huge fundamental events just around the corner after an already positive start to 2024. So now we need to find the key levels to be watching over the coming weeks. Today we're going to be looking at the key BTC price levels and where better to start than the golden ratio multiplier, which we can see over the past few weeks has been a very pivotal point of resistance for Bitcoin. Trending up from around $42,000 to where we sit now at around $52,000, we can see that Bitcoin has really struggled to convincingly break above this for a sustained period of time. And after multiple different bounces and retracements back off this line, it did briefly look like we had surpassed and had maybe turned this level of resistance into support, but now we can see we have actually dipped beneath this once again. So it'll be interesting to watch over the coming weeks if we can actually turn this $52,000 to pretty much $53,000 level now into a strong level of support. And if we look to prices further down than this, we can actually see that the Pi cycle top, which has been a very key level of support over the last few months, is now sitting around $42,500 to nearly $43,000, but is trending up quite quickly. So that might be a good level of support to watch in the coming weeks if we see a little bit more of a steeper retracement. And above that, we can see that this 350-day moving average multiplied by 2 is at around $66,000. So potentially a little bit more of an optimistic target to the upside if we had to break above the most recent resistance we see above us. But just very quickly, we actually did one of these videos about 6 weeks ago, and just to prove that your technical analysis doesn't have to be incredibly complex, too difficult, it doesn't need to have lots of different moving factors and everything. I know as you look at this, you might see lots of different lines, lots of different moving averages and say that this looks a little bit complicated. But honestly, we can show you today that this needs to only take a few minutes every couple weeks or so. That we actually predicted here that the key level to be watching was that $48,000 to $50,000 region, and we were actually expecting a little bit of a retracement to that $38,000 to $40,000 level. And if we actually go onto the price chart here, we can see if we just zoom in that Bitcoin, after we made that video around here, actually did have this retracement to just beneath $40,000 before we bounced up to above $50,000, where we currently sit on this $50,000 support level. And again, this was using very simple charts, very simple data. It doesn't need to be complex. So we're going to take a very similar approach today to try and once again find the key levels we need to be watching. So to really keep this simple, we're just going to start initially on the weekly time frame and just zoom out. And once again, we'll just be able to plot on the chart key levels of turning point in price. So what we're looking for here is where price previously has maybe come up to a level, turned back, that we can maybe consider to be a strong level of resistance, and especially if it's been tested multiple times. So we can see in the previous cycle here that's actually acted as support, and once we broke beneath it, it was a little bit of resistance, and then once again a little bit of support and then resistance again. So we can see that this is probably a pretty key level for the Bitcoin price action. We also like to look to the big psychological numbers, just because as much as we may deny it in our heads, once we see $50,000, once we see $100,000, those key round number price levels just stick in your head, and it sticks in the head of many different investors as well. So we're also going to say that about a $50,000 level is also a key level to be watching. And we can also see this has actually had, again, a little bit of significance over the past few years. We can see maybe not as much as that $48,000 level, but we can see in multiple different weeks we had lots of intra-cycle price action around this level. So that $48,000 to $50,000 level is something we're going to be watching closely. And along with that, we can potentially see levels where we bounced previously from as well. So we can see probably around here, we've had lots of these wicks, these upper boundaries of the candles coming through this level before price retrace. And this has happened on multiple occasions. And again, it turned into support a little bit here. So this is another probably key level to be watching for some more intra-cycle short-term moves as we move forward. And then above that, again, we can see probably around this level here where price turned back at this point in time around August 2021. And then above that, we can just say probably this point up here and maybe around here. So I think just, again, this took a few minutes, and this is looking at price action from years ago. And if we now drop down onto the daily time frame, we can actually scroll through and see how relevant these lines actually are. And we can see, if I just move that slightly down here, this level was a key point of resistance for multiple weeks. And once we broke above, it was a level of support until we hit the next line. And until we actually bounced off that $40,000 region, which we'll be ignoring a little bit here because we've got new levels of support just beneath us now, that once we actually bounced above from that, price ran all the way through these lines up until this $53,000, $52,000 level, the local high we currently have. So if I then load up a few of the moving averages we looked at, such as the golden ratio multiplier and the pi cycle top, we can actually see that we're now once again seeing confluence between these levels of support and resistance and some underlying data and metrics. And especially if we consider that these lines are moving averages, they are moving, this pi cycle is probably going to come up to this $44,000 level here. So if we are to see a much more stark retracement to the downside, a 20% or so retracement from our local high around $53,000, I think that 44K level to be a really key point of buy support if Bitcoin were to reach that low. And then, as we said, just beneath here, we have this level of $48,000 to $50,000, which if we had to see a little bit more of a slight retracement, then I think would be a good point to potentially accumulate for some shorter term positions, especially like we can see as this point acted as a key level of resistance previously and is now acted, especially if we drop down onto a lower time frame, as a pretty pivotal turning point into support over the past few weeks as well. And then above us, of course, the local high at $53,000, especially now it's coinciding with this golden ratio multiplier line at $53,000 is going to be the next key level of resistance. So it'll be really interesting to see if over the coming weeks, especially with the halving event, if we can potentially reclaim this line and then move up to the next levels of resistance we have, which are probably up here at around $60,000 to $62,000. I do think after a quite exponential increase to the upside that we have seen over the past few weeks, maybe we're going to see some cool off in the Bitcoin price action, maybe a little bit of retracement. It's very normal to have retracements of 20+% in Bitcoin bull cycles. And especially as this $44,000 level not only lines up with the Bitcoin cycle master fair valuation price, which again has been a very key level of support and resistance for Bitcoin over the past few months. So that really solidifies the fact that that $44,000 level would be a very key level of buy pressure. And this also coincides with the short-term hold-up realized price, which is one of the new metrics we have on Look Into Bitcoin that we'll do a deep dive on in a video in a few days' time. And if we actually zoom in here, we can see this is also just beneath $44,000, about $43,000, but we can see that this is increasing every single day as the average accumulation price of new money entering the market. So that'll be their break-even point in probably just a few days' time at $44,000. Also, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. Make sure to check out all the resources we discussed today, as well as the many more that are all available on lookintobitcoin.com, your number one source for Bitcoin information. So just to summarize, the most impactful regions of support and resistance for Bitcoin are those that are reinforced with confluence from multiple metrics, like we can see with the pi cycle, the golden ratio, and some on-chain data, once they actually coincide with some really key turning points in the market that we can see from the technical side of the charts. Really, these are the most influential points we need to be looking at. And as we can see, technical analysis does not need to be complex. The last video I did like this was 6 weeks ago, and every single line played out pretty much exactly as we imagined it would. So really, we don't need to have things very complicated. We can put lines on from multiple years ago of price action. We can use very simple moving averages. And more often than not, these most obvious and simple levels are the most influential ones because most people aren't checking every single minute candle for the most obscure diagonal lines of support and resistance. Really, if you can open the chart and immediately see the most obvious levels, that's what everyone else is seeing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that if everyone is seeing it and everyone's reacting to a certain price point, then it just reinforces its importance. And our nearest level of support using this methodology and logic to find these levels is that $48,000 to $50,000 region, with 44K beneath us likely to be a very strong area of buy support, and above current price as I film this at about $52,000. 58 to 60K is a big sell resistance once we claim above our local highs at 53K. And like we said, don't be afraid to do nothing. We have had a rather massive increase in price action over the past few months. So if we do have a little bit of a pullback, if we do have a little bit of choppy price action, don't be afraid to do nothing. Don't boredom trade. Don't try and leverage yourself up to try and maximize just tiny fractions of percentage changes in the market. Wait for the best risk to reward plays. If you like this video, then please visit lookintobitcoin.com, where you can also consider becoming a site subscriber to gain access to professional resolution charts like we've used today, these 1 hour resolution charts, advanced macro and portfolio data tools, in-depth crypto industry reports, live and personalized indicator alerts for the indicators we've discussed today, private TradingView scripts like we've used on TradingView today, and more, all for a fraction of the standard industry price. And let me know what price action points you're watching over the coming weeks, especially with the halving only a couple months away. Do you think we're going to potentially see a little bit of a retracement and you're going to scoop up some discounted BTC? Or do you think we're going to continue rallying hard to the upside? As I said, let me know down in the comments and on social media. I look forward to reading and replying to all of them. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.